Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the work session of the City Council for Tuesday, August 2nd. Who's first? Nothing start for finance or public service? You have something? Okay, Ryan?
Thank you. Just two items, Your Honor. Number three, brief discussion regarding the reduced solid waste fees exemptions. We had a discussion about this last time, and I'm going to ask direction from the council on how they want to proceed because there's a lot of programs for that. Right now, that's basically how the ordinance reads. If you are over the age of 65 or if you are disabled, you can automatically qualify for a reduced fee or an exempt fee, which it would reduce your fees. The Public Services Board would like to switch that and go more on an economic base due to hardship. This is their form that they do, and theirs is a little different. And with theirs, you have to be over 65 years of age or disabled. Plus, you have to meet economic hardship guidelines.
This is the water
This is the water department, correct, based upon the federal poverty guidelines. So theirs is even more strict, I guess. And so that's how they base theirs. Now, I did a little research, and I checked with other cities. Most cities base theirs off of the HUD, or the Section 8 housing agreement. City of Cedar Falls, Dubuque, Coralville, most of them, they go off the HUD statement, which looks like this. And they don't include disability and or age. And so I want to get some feedback for the council before I take it back to the board. I don't want to take too much time doing this, to see exactly what they want to include, what they don't want to include. The water department, after looking theirs, I'm not sure that's the direction we want to go because we're reinforcing what we're doing now. I guess the board would like to go off a more economic hardship basis rather than just age. So I want to get some feedback from council before I go back to the board and then come back to you guys on a recommendation.
Ryan, could you put that other page, just put it underneath that? I'd like to see a couple of these numbers here on the 1- and 2-person households, Lynn County. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
And so you can see that the federal poverty guidelines are pretty strict. I think I don't want to assume anything, but I think it'd be safe to say if you qualify for the federal poverty guidelines, chances are you're not paying solid waste fees because they're very low. But with the other cities that we did look at, they did go off of the Section 8 HUD that's on the top there. Any thoughts, comments?
So you want to penalize people who have made money in their lifetime and saved some of it and put it in the bank and have a higher income than people who have been careless with their money and are now dependent on Social Security. You're going to reward them and charge the other folks like Slug, who's saved a lot of money and has an income level.
Not sure if people should be rewarded regardless. That's my feeling.
They have less garbage. I'll argue that with you forever, that I have one little thing of garbage compared to your family of 4. I know you're going to say it costs the same to stop at my house as it does the other ones. But when we take it to the dump, mine costs less than a family of 4 does.
Okay.
By volume rather than, yeah, I like that.
I think that the thought of the council when we asked Ryan to look at this was, it seemed like this type of a system makes more sense than what we currently have, where if you're a certain age, you get the discount. It's not rewarding anybody. It's just giving a discount. But this was what we have now is based on age, and some people can afford it. Some people may not be able to afford it. So this seemed to make more sense to go by an income level rather than than just pure age, which,
In the Public Services Board, that's what they want to point out. They'd rather base it on income level like most cities do,
How are you gonna determine that?
right there.
well, I was gonna ask you, do people have to show proof of their income?
Yes.
or They do?
Yeah.
How do they do that?
I believe with the water department, they have to bring in their, with their poverty restrictions, they have to bring in certain paperwork. If they are entitled to, whether it's Section 8 housing or what have you, but there is paperwork they have to bring in, Social Security statements or what have you. They do require that proof to do that.
When is that refiled then, Ryan? Is it every January, every December, every July?
From my understanding, it's annually. I don't think they have one annual renewal period. It depends on the individual coming in. So they might have filed for it in May, and then they come back next May,
So
file
they
for it again.
revalidate it on the anniversary of their request. Okay, so it wouldn't be like we could require a top copy of their tax returns or something like that. That would obviously show all income. I was just curious.
So if you get a speeding ticket, and they're gonna ask for, what's your income level, we need to know what we should fine at court, are fire gonna charge more for this or that? I mean, is this the start of something big,
At the start,
They
we're
gonna
just,
put
we
a
just wanna be
sidewalk in, is it
consistent
gonna
with other
cost
people.
more money if you make more money? And
So are you saying we should just take away the discount altogether?
I think you should just leave it the way it is. I don't see anything wrong with the way it is, and tell the dump, we're not gonna pay them any more money. The whole thing is driven by the dump.
It's driven by people that throw away stuff.
Where's it go? Right?
Yep.
To the
Well,
dump.
I think the elderly, because it's a question of having survived this long.
So the way it's proposed, we wouldn't touch the elderly rates, we would sunset them. So if you're currently on the rate and you are elderly, we would not touch those. We would sunset those, but we would change the policy as it is to do this from now on.
No. No. I think you had figured out what it costs per stop,
Yep.
per household, and I think that's what we should charge.
And no discount.
Divide that out and give the senior a little discount, and you're done with the thing, instead of going through. If you ask me, or a lot of folks, to look at your financial or W-2s, I'm gonna tell you, go to hell, I'm not gonna show this to you. None of your business.
Just the exhibit that Ryan is showing up there has the 50% and 30% of low to moderate income guidelines. There's also another number that they will use for eligibility for things like federal housing programs, which is 80% of low to moderate income. And to give you an idea, in Lynn County, for a one-person household, that number would be $43,750. So that's the kind of thing, council has some flexibility on what number you would potentially choose as a threshold for something like this. That's the one, like when we've done federally assisted housing programs in the past for like rehabilitation programs for owner-occupied housing, the 80% number was the one that is used for that.
And if anybody wants a copy of this, I'd be happy to give it to them. And again, here's the water department. That's what they have in place right now. With them, you have to be 65 or totally disabled, plus qualify financially for any type of reduced rate. And that type of system is more consistent with what you see throughout the state of Iowa.
But that makes more sense.
That's what the Public Service Board thinks, and that's what they'd like to propose to the council.
Scoot that up to the bottom there, Ryan.
Let me go down?
No, the other way.
Yeah.
Keep going. That 24,030, is that something that they?
Yep. And so that's set by the feds.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
those
each
are
year
poverty
that
guidelines.
probably
Right.
inches up just slightly.
Yep.
The only thing I was thinking is that, you make them do that every year, and that, usually that doesn't change year to year, so, I think if you do that, maybe do it 3 years, or keep them from having to come back every year.
In terms of deciding that, because after we discuss this with the water department, there's a potential they're going to review theirs as well.
Okay.
And that way we could have more of a consistent system where
Yeah.
we would work together both ways, because they do all the billing for us anyways. So it'd make more sense to have the same system in place. At least we thought so.
Ours be short-term until we dump the dump? No, I'm serious.
What's that?
Won't ours be short-term till we dump the dump and handle our own?
There are avenues for
Can
different,
we get out of our agreements, or do we have an agreement with them? They don't think we have. They just increase when they want to.
yeah, there are ways. We'll be reviewing all the solid waste fees here.
As we develop our
Soon.
technology-owned
We will be
systems.
reviewing all solid waste fees. In the meantime, the board would like to come back to the council with a recommendation on these reduced fees.
Currently, right now, do landlords pay for the garbage versus the tenants? I'm not
No,
familiar with that.
usually on a single-family dwelling, the landlords do, or not, the
Tenants.
renter pays for the
Okay.
solid waste fees, typically, is what we see.
What do you consider total disability? I mean, the state gives me a little blue card so I can park and.
If a state, if you are considered disability per federal state guidelines, then you're qualified.
Right, sure.
If we want to include that, so.
Well, yeah, shoot. The batteries all wore out on my replacement, so I'm not bionic anymore. So.
Okay.
What does Cedar Rapids do? Do you know?
They base theirs off of Section 8,
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
guess
most
I
cities do. It's just easier to tie that in rather than federal poverty or age-based.
I think,
I can look at theirs, bring it back, but that's what most cities do.
yeah, I kind of like being, in sync with the water department, so.
Yep.
About the same.
Because you're young.
Is that anyone in the household that turns 65, or is that?
No, right now, it's everyone in the household has to be over the age of 65.
Everyone.
Right now, that's the current ordinance.
So you can have a young boyfriend.
Yes, I can.
Any other direction here? What we're going to do, I'm taking it back to the board, and we'll come back with a formal recommendation from the board. I just want to get some input from the council before we did that, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I know I dug my heels in before.
I
but
know you did.
I think this is probably fair, so.
That's what the board would like to see, and so we'll come back. I understand your opinions, and I will state those as well.
Well, I will vote no for anything that helps the dump.
I know.
Were you here the last
I
time we
know.
talked about this?
If you don't understand, I don't like that thing out there.
Okay, I got one more item, Your Honor. Number 4, discussion regarding natural gas franchise agreement. This is something that I've been working on for the past year. And under our ordinance, Chapter 110, we hold a natural gas franchise agreement currently with Mid-American Energy. Now in the state of Iowa, you can have multiple natural gas providers. Most people don't know that. Like here for the city of Marion, a lot of the natural gas that we utilize for the city, we actually purchase out of Oklahoma through a group called Consortium, and a lot of people don't realize that. And so during some of our projects and some of our future growth out to the east of town, we have realized that we have some capacity issues with our natural gas. This is something we've been looking at for a while, and we've known about this, and so we've been working on addressing this for a long-term need for the city of Marion. I apologize for the map. This is about the best one I could find. And what I want to show, these are the pipelines of natural gas throughout the state of Iowa. And here is the metro area, city of Cedar Rapids, right by my finger. The blue up here, these are called interstate pipelines. These are high-pressure pipelines that go in and out of the states. They take in the high-pressure gas in and out of the states. Most of them in Iowa are owned by Northern Natural Gas. And the blue pipelines, those are the intrastate pipelines. Those are Mid-American Energy, Alliant, whoever is the natural gas provider within that region. So they own those pipelines. Some of the things that we're running into is that Marion is in a black hole for natural gas. And we've known this for a while, and we've been working on different solutions on how to address this. So as you can see up here, all the natural gas that feeds the entire metro area comes from Benton down to the south side of Cedar Rapids and feeds back up to Marion. We're at the end of the line. We've known that for quite some time, okay? Over here is a interstate pipeline owned by Northern Natural Gas. This line right here, that's owned by Black Hills Energy. They're another natural gas provider, another utility provider within Iowa as well as in the western region. We have been in conversations. I spoke with their president, vice president of operations. They have agreed to offer us a natural gas franchise agreement. What they'd like to do is take this pipeline over in Springville. They are the natural gas provider over in Springville and bring it over to the city of Marion. By doing that, that's going to allow for growth to the east of Marion. Right now, we're constricted on natural gas supply. If you ever had a major industrial want to locate out in Medco, it would be tough because there's not a lot of loading that we can support. When we looked at building a very large natural gas fueling station, we knew this, but Mid-Am, they wanted $2.5 million in upgrades in order to do this. But Black Hills Energy has said, yeah, we would love to come in here, provide a franchise agreement to you, and then also provide some competition, which would serve our needs very well. This gives you an idea. This is Black Hills Energy. That's kind of their ownership throughout the United States. The blue is the blue or and the gray are natural gas areas, and they have some electrical as well. So what I'd like to do is get some council feedback. We'd like to go ahead and work on a new franchise agreement with Black Hills Energy. Really no cost to the city of Marion. It's going to bring in some other resources that we don't have currently. And then their goal is to work with us on some of our projects. They have a very big interest in what we're doing. And they are a very good company to work with, at least up to this point. So what we'd like to do is put a formal motion on the agenda, go ahead and direct staff on preparing that franchise agreement, and see where we can go from here. So any questions on that?
This would be for public use, not city.
Both.
Both.
Both. Give you a good example.
Why is this
City of
natural gas?
Ankeny has 2 natural gas franchise agreements, one with Mid-Am, one with Black Hills Energy. There's really no territories with natural gas. There really isn't. So providing that resource to the east of us is going to provide growth long-term for the city.
So how does it work? Does each of them have their own territory in the
They don't really have
city?
their own territory. They have their own infrastructure. They might have their own pipelines.
So people can choose who to use?
Their objective would not be to take over Mid-Am's distribution system, the underground piping and what have you. They're looking at the east of town, the growth, where Mid-American's not at. I'll give you a good example, the airport. If you go out there, there's a lot of propane tanks out there. Mid-American's not in a hurry to get out there. They just can't serve a lot of load out there. Black Hills Energy would like to get out there. They see that as a potential growth area. And so they would like to bring their infrastructure this way, then work with us to bring the lines in we need for our projects as well.
So would we be ultimately on the end of the tail end from the interstate and both of those lines, correct?
Yeah.
So we would really be, it puts us in an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Can we also use or possibly include looking at adding Springville into the equation as a little bit of obviously they could potentially benefit from that as well, correct?
Springville's already has Black Hills Energy.
Oh, they do, because they were on the same trunk, or looked like they were on the same lines we were by colors.
I'm sorry, and I apologize for that. If you guys want a copy of this.
That's okay.
The best one I could find.
When I seen that, it looked like Springville was on, if I'm looking at the colors correctly, they're on the same colored.
Yeah, but they're served from the east from that.
This little gap, here's Springville.
Right.
Here's Marion. They want to close this gap.
Okay.
And they're served from this interstate pipeline coming in over here from Anamosa to right here.
Okay.
So Springville is everybody in Springville is served by Black Hills Energy. The nice thing about that is there is I don't want to say unlimited amount of load we could take advantage of there's a lot there. There's been some projects that, we've done in the past where this would address that.
Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the colors on the map don't indicate the size of the pipelines or the capacity. They indicate the classification, whether it's interstate or intrastate. So that line coming to Springville, for example, would be larger and have more capacity than the one coming into Marion from the south.
Okay, clearly because we're on a shorter linear foot line. Okay.
Not only that, but the capacity. This line right here is bigger than this line coming down here to Cedar Rapids. They plan for growth in this corridor. And so that's why Black Hills did that. And they have a lot of neat ideas they'd like to pursue. And they've been a really neat company.
Well, I think as we're going to the east, we're going to have a huge need and a demand for that in the future, whether that's tomorrow or 10 years from now.
And it'd be all at their expense, the
So far,
infrastructure?
as we move forward with some of this stuff, there's some decisions that will have to be made that Lon, actually I have to talk to Lon to see what makes sense for strategic planning, but as of right now, they see this as to their advantage. They want to get in this market. Mid-America's they said, we really can't support that growth out to the east. They're at the end. And just to back up what I'm saying, this is 2 years ago. We were doing some planning, and that number right there, 2.5 million, that's what they wanted to get the loadings that we needed just for a big natural gas fueling station. Right? Since then, we've addressed that. We've fixed that. We know what we're doing with that. But that, and this was with a public service board member that worked at Mid-Am who was helping us. He's very talented. Tom Pally said, I'm helping you as much as I can, but this is what it's going to cost us to do that. So
I would be in favor of that strongly.
As far as laying the line to Springville to here, would that be they would do that?
Yep, they would do all the permitting, it would be, as of right now, they're approaching it like they would own the pipeline, just like Mid-American would. They'd bring it here.
Where would it come in, say, on Highway 13 into Marion?
They would like to come right down Highway 151.
151?
Yep.
Is that a horizontal bore they can do for those pipes? Or
They can trench it in, blade it in, or they can do a horizontal bore.
Oh.
We're keeping out of I could show you on a map what they're proposing, but they would keep out of the areas where there's a lot of infrastructure because they don't want to build it twice.
I was going to say, start cutting into stuff out there on the highway.
Yeah, and they've already surveyed this. They already have plans. They've already given a budgetary figure. At one time, we were looking at putting it in ourselves, but they said, no, we want to get here too.
Is there a way when we design this to have so it can go either direction? We can get our feed from South Cedar Rapids or then?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
We'll have redundant natural gas feeds.
So
and that's going to help the growth of the airport, Medco, out that way. It's really going to help them. Plus, it's going to help our projects out there.
But it would handle all of Marion, what we have residential and all now too.
I think what you'll see is that Mid-Am and Black Hills will have to reach an agreement to support Mid-Am's infrastructure.
Okay.
Is what will happen.
It's always good to have two sources.
Yes, I totally agree.
And so you don't want one source to be limited. You want them both to be able to supply both.
Kind of like our
supply the.
Yep, and it took about a year for them to agree to do this. They have to go through their process and get approval because it's a significant investment for them.
Yeah.
They're millions of dollars they're putting on the line.
I guess if we enter an agreement, we need to make sure that they understand that that's what we would expect, that they could, they could take the whole load, just like what we're looking at from.
Yeah, we've already specified loadings.
Okay.
To them, and they said no problem. To them, doesn't matter to them. They'll sell as much natural gas to us as we'll take. So.
Is that regulated like power? Is it? So there's
Iowa Utilities Board regulates all the natural gas pricing.
Yeah.
So, but in Iowa, we get it very cheap here. We're lucky.
Any other questions for Ryan?
Anything else?
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Chief, can you give us a little update? Please.
If I may suggest, could we go ahead and do the business items on the agenda and following those items, then I could give an update?
Okay.
So everyone else can finish up.
Okay. Engineering.
So there's a slight correction on item F1C on the dollar amount. It should be $277,326.89. 277,326.89. F1C, payment to Rickliffs for the 7th and 7th roundabout.
Okay, one more time.
$277,326.89.
Some new paperwork come in today.
they got some paperwork in that they, we had the original number, and then they finally got some paperwork in, so we decided to pay them for those items that they had done. So item number 2 is starred, and that's just because that is the last reading of that ordinance. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. So after that reading, after the codifiers make that change in our code section, that becomes the new rules. So that's why it's starred. There's a couple projects that are being accepted. Number 6 did not need to be started, it just got started. It's just a temporary construction easement. And then there's a couple correspondence to be filed. And Eli might be here for item number 7 on Thursday. So, any questions, any
Can you just give us a brief update on the progress of the construction down there?
Sure.
And is it on time? Is it? Oh,
So I had to send the contractor the 20% behind letter 2 weeks ago. And so basically what that is we take the percent of contract, percent of the total value of the contract, and we take the total percentage of days. So they have, they're now 20% behind when you compare percent of days to percent of contract. So they are behind. They got to that letter and they have so many days to respond with a new schedule. Today they were out there pouring. We were pouring at 7th Avenue in front of Country Kitchen. Most of Country Kitchen's parking lot is poured, but it's not open to them yet. There's still some paving that needs to go next to the retaining wall. We still need to paint the stripes in the parking stalls, and there's liability, and so there's sidewalks, there's lots of things to pour yet. And so if it's kind of up to the contractor when they want to open that parking lot. So if they don't feel that it's safe yet to open that parking lot, I can't force them to open that parking lot.
There's a lot of customers that are getting awful pissy about it.
I know. Country Kitchen has decided to start giving out my cell phone number, so.
Because they say they're having to walk too far and they just forget it. They'll go someplace else. So I don't want to see this type of thing put them out of business.
We're pushing the contract. Unfortunately, with any kind of construction project, we do not determine means and methods for the contractor to build the project.
The problem is they see these trucks sitting there on new concrete that has gravel in it and all these trucks and yet they're told that the concrete hasn't cured enough yet.
Who's told them that?
Well, this is people I hear from.
Well, they need to get the facts from the correct people.
Well, the thing is, though, if they're putting up how many ever ton truck full of gravel on that same thing that a car that's going to weigh a third of what that does, it's awfully difficult to coincide with good business practices and making it available for the customers. I mean, customers always.
When is the scheduled completion on the whole project, Mike?
Before the snow flies, they're supposed to be done with the project. And so there's certain things we can do, like currently they're in stage 4 of 7. I'm not allowing the contractor to go to stage 5 until stage 4 is complete. So all the underground, other than some utilities for the lights and stuff, is done in stage 4. So we're waiting on the paving to get done before they can move on to the next phase. There's lots of other utility work they could be doing in stage 5, which is 7th Street going down to 6th Avenue, and it's a pretty big phase. But, I mean, unfortunately, with any construction project, we determine the number of days, and we determine the specifications. We can start putting all kinds of stipulations in contracts, but I can tell you your dollar's not going to go as far when you do those projects. And I realize it hurts for all the businesses, and you got a couple letters in there to talk about, but it's the cost of doing business. We try and work with the business owners as much as possible. But
it is hard to explain. Country Kitchen today, the parking lot did have 4 construction pickups and trailers parked in that new lot.
Correct.
And it's hard to explain to the people why they can't use it, and they can. You can get through there pretty easily from the parking lot from the rest of that little strip mall.
Sure.
And why they can't park there on a Sunday morning is a pure mystery.
Sure, and some of that, like I said, is liability. So that, the entire job site is the contractors. So there was an accident on Friday last week where someone drove over they left Zio John's and went straight west out. That's the contractor's responsibility. That's their liability. So if I start dictating what they can and cannot have open, that opens the city to liability. I'm not allowed to move traffic control devices because that opens the city to liability.
Until the whole project is done? I mean, can't we piecemeal that liability?
That's where I have to work with the contractor and get them to open it. But that's ultimately the contractor's job site. They have the city of Marion as additional insured as part of the insurance policy that they have to submit to us, but it's technically their job site.
I mean, if it remains closed 2 or 3 months, you won't have to worry about it because Country Kitchen won't be there anymore.
Sure. And, you know, the contractor has the option, if they wanted to, they could pick up and leave today and leave it closed. I mean, there's provisions that I can do as part of the contract because they're not fulfilling their obligations. But there's only so much power that I have with the contract. That's why we don't dictate means and methods for a project. We don't tell them how to build the project. We say what we want in the end and how many days it's supposed to take to do that.
I go there after church on Sundays, and next Sunday I am going to park in that parking lot. Let your contractor know that. If I have to knock the fence down to do it. We can't let this guy go out of business.
Sure.
You know, one business is not, you lose one, you never catch up.
Yep. And technically that is trespassing. So Doug can probably fill you in
Well,
on that.
give me a ticket then. I don't care. Won't be the worst ticket I ever got.
Okay, any other questions for Mike? Anything else to add to?
No, I mean, we're working with the contractor. I mean, we've had a unseasonably wet July. Normally we don't have 3-inch rainstorms, so.
20%. Well, I can't even tell you. I think he's sprinkled some damn place.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Planning?
Mike, who is this contractor? Thank you.
You know, it just kind of bodes and how a business actually works with the city on this too. This has been very difficult with Country. I was involved in the upfront, and we're as a part of the discussion with them. They're getting quite a bit completed for their project. We're doing the parking lot. We put a wall. We've increased some parking, maintained, or there's a lot of things going on that site, and I understand that customers are having a problem getting in and out of there, but at the same time, I mean, there's a part of this that we did a lot of things up front to do what we can to make this a better project in the end. And, you know, I think they posted Mike's cell phone number on a piece of paper and said, call the city. I mean, to me, there's got to be a better way for them to communicate the situation as well as us. So that I think, I mean, I don't think that it's every bit of this is the city's fault or the contractor's fault. I think there's got to be some kind of communication that they're communicating on the project as well, that, hey, this is a bad deal. When we're done, we're going to have a brand new parking lot. When we're done, there's got to be, I have not seen that side of it. So, I mean.
But when he tells, you know, I'm there, I'm easy to get to, and he said, look, you know, this parking lot was supposed to have been done, I don't know how long ago. He said, when I negotiated with the city, I raised $50,000 to handle me during this construction phase, and it's gone. So, you know, how do we help from here?
Yeah.
You know, how do we, like I say, we lose the business, you never catch up, guys.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it would never have had to have been done in the first place.
I guess I do sympathize with the business owners, but I can tell you that if we never do any intersection improvements, if we don't ever do any roadway projects in a growing city where the population is reaching 40,000 people when it was 15, this stuff has to occur, and there's got to be so I'm not saying that we're innocent in communications. I'm just saying that this is the first one we've done. Wait till we get to the 7th Avenue.
Have you ever lived in California? They drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to their jobs.
I understand that.
And this little piddly four-way intersection down there was not that big a deal.
Oh,
But keep in mind that this whole corridor that we're addressing, 53% of our traffic accidents happen in this 1.2-mile stretch of roads that we're working on right now. And you think about the resources that the police department and the fire department put towards that 1.2 miles when the city has more than 160 miles of streets. I think it's the height of irresponsibility to say that there was not a problem down here that needed to be addressed. The only alternative we would have had to what we're doing right now would have been to widen 7th Avenue down through that whole area to 5 lanes wide. And if we were going to widen that to 5 lanes wide, picture that the next time you go down there, how many businesses would be gone? It's the only way you could come anywhere close to addressing the traffic capacity that we're doing right now. And if you're going to widen it to 5 lanes, no one in this community is ever going to widen this stretch of road out here to 5 lanes wide and devastate the uptown and either take out the park or take out all those historic buildings on the north side of 7th Avenue. So you can say that this project wasn't necessary and criticize it all you want, but the fact is the city had to do something. And we chose the alternative that was the least impactful and the least negative for the community in the long term. And anybody that says different from that really isn't addressing the project from the basis of facts.
Yeah, the point is we have to all look at the big picture, and it's definitely painful in the interim for everybody, but this isn't the first place that this has happened. This isn't the last time it's going to happen. You know, these are necessary things. They ran into a lot of wet ground and rain and water pipes from the 1880s.
Yeah, only 130 years old.
Pardon?
It was only 130 years old.
130-year-old white water pipes. You know, things that they didn't know what they were going to find. And, you know, I'm not excusing the contractor. They are 20% behind. So we need to apply pressure wherever we can within the contract and within our rights. And everybody do our part as much as we can and try to keep a positive attitude and keep the big picture in mind. In the end, it is going to be a beautiful intersection. It's going to take care of a lot of the traffic issues. The businesses are going to have, or Country Kitchen is going to have a brand new parking lot, expanded parking, and hopefully all their customers will be happy.
But I have a problem with this 53%, because if you said, okay, 50% of the accidents happen at that intersection, and for the whole 7th Avenue, there's 2 accidents, that one is going to be a 50%er. Then, you know, give me numbers, don't give me percents.
Okay. All right. Tom?
Yes, the first item under planning is there's a public hearing on Thursday regarding a preliminary and final site development plan related to Sunny Villas development. This is a project that we talked about a little bit at the last meeting when we set the public hearing. It's north of Casina, east of Highway 13. So we got Mountain View Manor, Scott Meadows retirement housing up here. The proposal is just north of there, off Bison Court. I highlighted in red. The area is zoned planned development residential. The property originally was proposed to be developed as kind of a campus for the Mountain View Manor folks. This isn't a really easy illustration to read, but so this is Bison Court, East Casina. Also coming through will be the final plat that'll extend Crestwood from north to south, which is the key transportation corridor we're trying to accomplish out in that area, and the fire department's really excited about that. Anyway, that's going to be a good part that's coming as a part of this, but just a different development stage. Right now we're talking about the east side of Bison Court. You can see there was proposed at one point an additional three-story apartment building for seniors, and then some condos proposed closer to the single-family residential. But ultimately, there were mixed-use buildings. That project's really not coming together as planned, and the owners of that have chose to sell that to a private developer who is proposing to build four multi-story apartment buildings south. So again, here's Bison Court. This is the layout. So there's four buildings and parking on the first level of the building. If you're familiar with the apartments west of Boyson and C, the intersection of Boyson and C, they're the newer ones. Abode built them. They're the same design as those that's being proposed out in this area. I think you'll find that these are aesthetically very nice looking buildings. I know there's been a lot of talk. I think Mr. Draper even mentioned it at one point when they were coming up at a meeting that those are nice looking buildings. They got a color palette that's something we really haven't seen. I would say there's a 360-degree architecture all around, so it's not just a front facade. It's carried around throughout the building. We were pretty excited to see the design elements of this as it came through the planning department. There was some pushback at the planning commission meeting. There were some residents in the neighborhood who have single-family homes that were concerned with the height of the buildings. Most of those concerns, I don't know that from a planning perspective, they didn't seem to be too impactful in my mind. The R2, or the single-family residential district, provides for a 35-foot, so like a two-story building. These are three, but they do meet the threshold for that. As you can see, there's parking in the garage underneath the first level, and then there's two levels in the pitch roof. So there's, as a part of this, and just so that the council's aware, this isn't a rezoning request. This is a planned development residential, and with that, the city council and the planning commission get review the preliminary and final site development plan relative to the property, and that's what you're doing here. So it is a permitted use under this zoning. It's the site development plan that you're looking at. So we like to bring in the elevations as a part of that. The landscape plan is also a part of that, as is being proposed. Landscaping around, buffering to the north where there is one single-family home here, and then one to a little further east. There's landscaping in the front yard. There's some detention on the south side. So I believe there's approximately 70 feet between the property line and the first structure. So there's an access road to the north that's going to kind of buffer the residential. So it's not like it's right up to the property line and your backyard is a 35-foot building. So there's about 70 feet in there. I think the lots on the north side probably are not much wider than 70 feet, so it's almost another lot width. Planning Commission reviewed the proposal, and it has recommended that it proceed to the council for approval. So on Thursday there'll be a public hearing on the project, and then there'll be also a resolution approving the preliminary and the final site development plan for this project. Generally, we get a preliminary if there's generally a preliminary would be for a whole site, and then the final would be for individual site. In this case, they're proposing to build the project all out at once, so we're just doing the preliminary and final at the same time. The developer will be at the meeting. He's here today if there's specific questions, but the finishes within the units are very high-end, has been granite countertops and high-end finishes. So I think they're over, he can verify this, but they were over $1,000 a month in rent. So these are not just your average rentals. I think west of here I think the rentals are going for about $700 or $800. So these are a pretty high-end product. So actually, I think they're more like $1,200 to $1,300. He's not. But, well, No, you're fine with that question, but it's 12 to 1,300 month rent, so that's pretty high in this market. So, any questions on that? I'm not going to go into great detail unless there's other questions.
No, they look nice.
Are they single floor apartments? They're not two-floor apartments individual, are they?
Above the garage.
Yeah, so there'd be a garage and then 2 floors above it. So
There's
there's really three.
units.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
But a unit is one floor.
No, they're vertical.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
Yep.
And you can go look at those. They're really a handsome building on Boyson.
They're one of the newer, I would say they're a new product to market in this area. I mean, I think you can go to another communities and you see something similar, but this is I'd say a new product because a lot of the apartments are somewhat recycled in the floor plans and layouts. So, yep.
So those homes to the north, is there lighting on the plan on the north side of that building that would be, shining down into the
Any lighting's required to be down directional, and there's no parking lot lighting proposed. So, they may have some building lighting, but I don't even think they have that proposed at this point.
Be nice to see something like this closer to the central core.
Mm-hmm.
To offer a little bit of a different choices.
You are working to try to get a second street, and second access to this.
Well, this is what it currently looks like out there now.
Yeah, that's what I was.
There's, as a part of development here, this property has just been recently purchased, and a part of that will be the extension of this road north-south.
Okay, so there'll be
Yep.
But will there be access that way from that road?
There will be required access from here over to the road.
Okay.
But it's more or less a reliever for some of the higher density in there that's currently there. So it's going to be provide additional access to this unit that's currently built.
But that's not going to get you out of that area there, is it? Except for that road going north.
Correct. Yep. So, I mean, it's fully accessible, though. I think the fire department can drive completely around all the buildings. So. Any other questions?
Would be a possibility of putting a drive out to the east, to hit that road in the future.
There's two things. One, they don't own the property.
But I mean, just on their property they own, they could put a stub there so that whenever the road went in, they could get access to it across.
Well, in concept, that could happen. The area has been preliminary platted, and there's final plats that associate with that. So when this area was preliminary platted, there was no consideration for anything directly into this property except for here. And they're accommodating that. So that does create an impact and a change to the preliminary plat and how that would work. Plus, I don't know that there would be a standard that would drive that position. I don't think there is from a fire perspective.
No, in fact, the project's going to help us tremendously. The residential that's east of this development, putting in that road from north to south is going to help us a lot. And I see what you're saying, Councilman Spinks, about having an east exit from the apartment area to that street.
Right.
But we will be using the one down near the parking lot you see to the south of that square. There will be a road there. So technically there will be two entrances and exits, one to the east and one to the west onto Bison. So it meets all the code requirements.
So is that road a private road then? That road that's going to it?
Yes, it will be, but
Bison is not, though.
Bison's not.
No.
It's a city.
Yep.
It's a city street.
Yep.
So can you turn around in that circle there, Brian? You guys get turned around in that?
Yes, you go ready.
Okay. Remember, I brought it up. I'm not saying I won't tell you so, but I brought it up.
I would.
Number 7, is that next?
Number 7, this is related to Prairie Trail First Edition. This is out across from Oakbrook Estates on Alburnett Road. You'll recall Skogman's doing a development out there. This is not the greatest map, but you'll know when I see. Alburnett Road comes out, so Oak Ridge School located here. This is what stubs into Oak Ridge Circle Drive. You go west, there's new homes being constructed out in this vicinity. I think about here has been final platted. If you recall, we had a conversation about what to do on Alburnett Road as far as pedestrian access and traffic because it's a rural cross section. So what we required at the time was that we get an area dedicated west of the drainage area for future bike and pedestrian access walkway up in that 10-foot trail. But we deferred that because there was no other development on either side of the subdivision. Very shortly thereafter, DK or Dustin Kern came in with a development proposal for the property north. It's the old horse farm. And he's done his first phase. And with that going in and these numbers, we required him to put that sidewalk in. And so we went back and had a conversation with Skogman and requested that they move forward and also put that portion of the trail in. And that'll ultimately get us, all these new homes going in. We'll be able to come down to a point, and then I believe next year we're looking at addressing this as a potential crosswalk so that these folks can get across Alburnett Road safely to the school and to the playgrounds, to Lau Park, the baseball facilities. So what we need to do at this point is just there needs to be a resolution of necessity passed to require that go in because it was deferred at the time. We've contacted Skogman. They're aware of this, and they're fine with it. So I pulled it off the last agenda. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was going on. I didn't want it to be a surprise or anything. So we've met with Skogman since that time, and everybody's good. The final item starred, number 9, is related to a memorandum of understanding.
Can I ask you one question, Tom, before
Sure.
you? What's all the stuff to the south on that picture there?
This here? This here?
Yeah, what's all that?
So when they bought this, it was part of a larger farmstead.
Oh.
So these are existing homes. If you go out there now, there's been some work done. There's a new driveway, but they maintained the house. It's either 1 or 2 homes. May have been two homes were maintained on the property that was the previous farmstead for the whole piece. So they split that off. I think they were for sale for some time, and they've recently sold.
Okay.
So they've maintained the housing that was there before and then built around it. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I just
They have.
wanted-
That's okay. That's a good question. They have direct access to Alburnett Road, so it's not through the subdivision.
Right.
So. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're okay. So we've had discussions in the past regarding the necessity to obtain the right-of-way on the north side of the property formerly known as Prince Agra. One of the things that we think is important to do is move forward with a memorandum of understanding regarding the transaction for the acquisition of the right-of-way, and then also addressing the property to the rear of them that's owned by the city. So this action is just a resolution essentially directing staff to proceed with negotiating a memorandum of understanding and bringing back for council review. So there's no memorandum at this point. We'll start the negotiations and bring it back to I would like to have it back to the council at the next meeting. At this time, there's a temporary construction easement that the project is being built on. So you'll see some 7th Avenue improvements continuing east of the roundabout. That's out there now. Starting Thursday, they'll be out working on 7th Avenue.
So any of this that's going on, is that any of this will have stopped their construction? Has it stopped any of their construction, or they?
Well, I hesitated, maybe. Would that be the appropriate term?
Yeah.
Hiccup?
The reason I asked, there was a few days where it looked like everyone was gone, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they were back.
Well,
so.
there's
There's a
other
few
issues.
utilities that are also on our way. If you notice, the Alliant are off the pole. They were the
Yeah, I
very
saw
top.
that.
And so CenturyLink and Windstream are still on there. So there's still some utilities in our way. So there's some of that going on a lot of projects as well.
None of this that we've been talking to them with has stopped the project so far.
It has not stopped it, but it came to a point where we needed to know if there was going to be an issue, and so we're working forward together. Developing a memorandum of understanding is essential to us getting that project complete.
So does this count against them on their days?
This is technically a public-private partnership project, so there is no working days.
Okay, it won't count against them
No.
for a working day.
We still keep track so that if we need to go into that, but this is like a subdivision where there's not a set number of days to do the project.
Okay. When they start cutting into 7th, though, and doing all that, that's when we don't need to interrupt this.
Absolutely.
Because that would be a major, uh-oh.
Yeah. So that's why, I mean, it came to a point if we weren't going to move forward, we're going to pull the project, and then we'd essentially sat there for another year.
Yeah.
So we needed to get the temporary construction in line so that we can negotiate a MOU to move forward.
Absolutely.
Go back to number 2, please, about the receiving and filing the item to planning and zoning about, now that's the movement of the animal clinic, right? From 15th and 6th?
Item number 2, the receive and file the comp plan and zoning petition on Meadowview.
Yeah, now I have a really strange question. How much is it going to cost to move this animal clinic to a new location? Because thinking back when Ollie Klein moved OK to Dumbass on 6th Avenue, his bar, Dumas.
I knew what you were talking about. It was Kim's face.
Anyway, I mean, he got new coolers, he got new dispensers, he got new everything, and it cost, $2,000 a month to keep some of that stuff in storage. Now, an animal clinic is a heck of a lot more technical than a bar, and I'm wondering, knowing what this thing down here costs as far as moving businesses out, and the cost of rehabilitating their business, how much is it going to cost? Has anybody even looked at that?
Yes, I got an estimate from the folks that are working with them on the relocation. So there's certain things. So we'll have to we'll buy their property.
How much? It's a double lot.
Correct. I believe it's in the 160s for the property. I can get it to you, and maybe it's best that I do that in the future. But I'll just give you. So there's the 160, I think, was the appraisal. There's a tenant, so I got to figure out what we owe the tenant and how that's going to work with the relocation of a tenant. There's reestablishment fees or business expenses that they can, that the city is obligated to reimburse them for reestablishing their business at a different location. And that's $20,000, up to $20,000, I believe. And then there's relocation. And some of the relocation gets into it's one of those things where we have to determine whether it's an allowable expense under relocation. We are going to have to move their x-ray machines and make sure that there's a room outfitted for an x-ray procedure.
Now, when Klingler's got a new building and Emmert's got a new building, the city paid for those, right?
That was a private development. So Genesis bought their facilities and then worked with the city to build a new building, so
Alright.
there was TIF assistance. So we didn't pay for any of the relocation as a part of those projects. The city
Okay.
does not own the Klingler site, and we do not own the APC Emirates site.
So basically, is this veterinarian going to make out on this, or is she going to be in?
I will use the term that all the relocation folks use is they'll get all the money they're owed, but not a penny more.
Well, I just think that that's still a bad location for a roundabout, because there's an awful lot of kids that are going to be, either that or their parents are going to be driving them to school, which is going to be a bigger mess.
Well, I mean, I think that's a different conversation, but I do want to go back to the vet clinic. I think their relocation is going to be good for them, and I think they see that. We're going to be seeing the zoning and the comp plan come back through the council, so there'll be a review. And I'll have, once our relocation folks have had a chance to meet with them on site, get a good inventory of what they need to move, have a better understanding of the tenant situation. There's a renter. I don't know what that means at this point. I'll bring back as a discussion item what we see as being the capital outlay for this project. So.
Well, I mean, you take an established business location and move it, usually you lose a lot of customers that way, so clientele, and the four-legged kind don't like to be moved, sorry.
So.
I think you should volunteer to take all the animals while they move.
Yep.
Yeah, have them at
For
your house.
11.
I'm sure the kids would
Was
love
there a
that.
little piece of land in there that wasn't in the city? I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is actually when the resolution was approved, we included and attached basically the development agreement between the city and the property owners, and it provided for the transition of taxes. Since that time, we've done a couple other annexations, and we've included in the resolution so that gets recorded. So it's right in the approving resolution by the city council. So the county, it's easier for the county to see it and follow it and track it. And so they had asked that we redo the resolution to include it in the approving resolution like we've done the other ones, because I think they've already prepared the taxes that didn't include it, so this is just something that makes it easier for them to catch that. So we're accommodating that. And so really it's just reapproving the annexation, just including the tax transition in the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yep.
The first item under administration, the first two are related. One is a motion to receive and file a letter requesting TIF assistance and a copy of the preliminary TIF application from Les Arnold. Mr. Arnold is here and has brought some information about his project that he would like to have an opportunity to show the City Council. Essentially, he's looking at buying the building that used to house Bill's Tap and establishing a building in there, and he's requesting assistance from the city for some health and safety upgrades. And the overall project, what he's looking for is assistance with the cost of putting a sprinkler system into the building. It's a little bit under $40,000 that he'd be looking for to do that. With the revamped TIF policy, this is the type of project that it contemplates, is that if we have historic or older buildings in the uptown area that it's otherwise not cost effective to put health and safety improvements into, this is a way that we can incentivize through the community making those long-term changes to the building that will have a dramatic impact on safety. If you want to talk to anybody about whether or not we should have sprinklers in the uptown building, I'm sure the fire chief would be more than happy to weigh in on that for you. But with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Arnold. I know he's got some drawings to show you, and he, I think, wanted to have an opportunity just to introduce himself to the council and talk a little about his project.
Welcome. Thank you. I've met most of you already as we were trying to get into deciding if we were going to do this project or not, but as Lon mentioned, my name is Les Arnold. I've lived in Marion a little over 20 years now. I live out by Hunters Ridge, 4205 Flagstick Drive. My wife and I are, as Lon mentioned, in the process of purchasing the Kuba and the Kurtz buildings, the old Bill's Tap location, to open another bar and social
sports bar. As Lon mentioned, we're looking for TIF money for the sprinkler system. When we decided we were going to do this project, we decided we were going to open up the retail space building next to Bill's so that we would expand the footprint of the bar. Upon doing that, it would increase our occupancy rating, which according to the fire codes would require sprinkler systems. Not only would it require sprinkler system in the main floor, which would be considered the bar area, but also the 2 apartment buildings on the second floor, and also has to sprinkle the basement underneath the first floor as well. So I have blueprints for the building and what we plan to do with it. I don't know what exactly you might want to see, but so what we're asking for is assistance through the TIF program for that sprinkler system, because it was something above and beyond what we had initially planned for when we were doing our budget and everything for the ability to open up this new business.
Les, can you give us a little bit of, give me a little bit of perspective? What is it, obviously you have renditions of drawings, and what kind of money are you planning on putting into this? Can you just give us just a very high level?
Sure.
Because we want to validate this. I think this is it's a very valid request, and I think it's a great project. So thank you very much for pulling some interest in here for Marion. But can you just give me a little
You bet.
quick
So
oversight?
besides the purchase price of the building, we're looking at putting a little over $200,000 in improvements to the building, in construction, renovations. Basically, it needs a ground-up renovation. It's not had anything done in years and years and years. That doesn't include another $70,000 in bar equipment, so coolers, tables, chairs, TVs, everything that goes along with opening up a bar. One of the interesting things is what we want to do is with the alleyway art project, we want to open up that back area so we can have some open air seating. And then also we're applying for the challenge grant to help us renovate that back part of the building where the white tin, basically the eyesore that is down in the alleyway. We want to install, if we get the the challenge grant, we're going to install glass windows all along where that white tin is presently, and then between the open air seating and indoor patio area in the back area of where Bill's was. So that's kind of the plan for that area. What we want to accomplish with that is obviously folks who are coming down to view art and such might not be interested in a sports bar. So we wanted to offer a part of the bar that would be more open and inviting to folks who might be interested in just sitting around and having a nice social conversation and not worrying about a sports game interrupting their evening or whatnot. So we're trying to plan the layout of the bar, and if you want me to share some of that, I certainly can. 3 distinct areas. There'll be more of a modern bar area, which was the old Bill's. The open up the retail area next door would be more a traditional sports bar, kind of a big screen TV with some stadium seating, and then the back area would be the patio and open air seating area.
The apartments, will they be handicap accessible?
They are not handicapped accessible.
I know. Will they be?
There's no plans to do anything with them.
No
in that regard
elevator,
presently.
nothing in for...
We hadn't looked at that. I mean, it wasn't part of our plans initially. So, good point though. So, maybe future investments or
Do you plan to do anything
upgrades.
to the apartments?
One of the apartments is presently rented. A 12-month lease was just signed with the current owner of the building 2 or 3 months ago. The other apartment is open, and it will get, we're going to rip out the carpet and redo all the hardwood floors and repaint it, and it'll get new appliances and probably new linoleum in the kitchen. But that's about as far as we're going to go with the apartment at this point, with that one. And then once I can talk with the tenants, I'll give them the option if they want to move across to the other apartment. They're both about the same size, kind of same amenities, give them the option if they want to move over and occupy the other apartment, and then we can renovate the other one. They're presently satisfied, evidently, with the shape of the apartment that they're in right now, so they signed a new lease, so no plans to do anything in that one right now.
What about facade? Anything to the facade?
So, yeah, so part of our renovation plan is to replace all of the front windows and the glass. They got the brick glass above. There's a vent that was there for an old furnace. We're going to replace it with all new, I think 2 buildings down. They just did one of the areas with the new modern tempered tinted glass with the aluminum framing.
Sure.
So we're going to have, I got a really good, I don't know if is the emo on. I need to find a picture here. Sorry. There's so many. Okay, yeah. So this is what the front. Okay, so here's a rendition of what the new front facade will look like. We are removing the other door on the retail space, is in the present plan, which is on the right-hand side, so that we have better control over people coming and going and such. The left-hand side is where the current Bill's location is. Again, you can see all the windows above will replace the current old glass style bricks and the old vent that's rusted and such. And then the back area, this is a rendition of what we plan to do where the tin area is presently. So this is, again, is all tinted thermal glass that would face part of the alleyway, right? So it'd face mostly the other building. And then between this is what the glass and the double doors would look like, which would go between the open air patio seating area and the inside patio seating area. So again, it's going to look real modern and nice, very appealing to folks in the alleyway. We will have railing, much like Paul and Jeannie put up at the Uptown Snug, around the patio area. They would enter through the existing back door to get into the patio area.
So basically, you're changing the appearance of the front of the building.
And the back.
Are you sure you want to do that?
We're leaving all the original brick. We're not going to do anything with the brick.
Yeah, but I mean, like the
building.
use of windows and stuff, it's going to be a complete change, right?
I don't think it's going to be a complete change. The building's going to look very similar. There's presently glass windows there. All we're doing is replacing the above area with windows. Yeah, the brick will still remain. Both buildings will remain the same color, the tan and the red brick. We're not going to do anything with that. So the building itself, the names and everything, and all the window artwork and everything that's currently there will remain.
Is there an awning there currently?
There are awnings there. We worked with the city, Marion, I can't remember the group. They're doing a facade design for us right now, so we're taking advantage of that. The plan presently would be to remove those awnings.
So just to kind of bring this back a little bit, obviously what's before us today is you're requesting the TIF.
Yes.
And thank you for all your information, because this is the first I've seen of it.
Yeah.
And again, very excited about the interest in people wanting to not only purchase but renovate our current uptown. So
I noticed on the 9th, the Historical Commission is going to rule on tearing down that ugly building in back, but I noticed in the packet of information, I've asked Tom to show one photo that was mystifying, and that's the very back one.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
of you may remember Bill's Tap over on 11th, and that got in the packet of demolition, and of course that's where the mall is now, but the Marion Shoe Shop, historically, Mr. Kepros's, Papa Kepros's son Stephen just passed away, but that was a shoe repair shop for like 70 years. And if you look on down the street, there's a gap in there, and Ole's Ham and Egger would be down there next to the railroad tracks, so. But I found it strange that that picture was in there.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Are you going to serve food?
We are not going to serve food, but we've worked with the health department, and we are allowed to have folks bring in food from other restaurants that have been prepared. So if you think about it, I have two of the best pizza places, in my opinion, in the state of Iowa, within half a block of my front door. So, and then any other restaurant, as long as it's a licensed restaurant, we're going to allow them to bring food in. So, one other thing to note, we are going to also remove the back balconies over the back area, because they're falling apart. So we're going to remove those as well, and the back stairway coming down from the back, so it'll open that up a lot nicer, and it'll really look appealing from the viewer's eye. So,
Is that a fire escape, or?
It's not a requirement, as long as there's a window in there that the fire department can get into. We've already checked into that.
It can get on out though.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to replace the back doors with a big window, and as long as it's big enough for a fireman to get in with a tank on their back, then it meets the needs of the law or whatever, the code.
We need about 8 feet by 8 feet?
No, some of you do, but most of the firemen don't.
We won't be sending Councilman Stern out at the ladder.
Send the chief in,
But
she's smaller.
with it being sprinklered, though, that really eliminates any
Yeah.
need for fire
The
escape.
upstairs will be sprinkled
Yes.
too. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Is there anything the city will have to do as far as providing enough water for the sprinklers?
It's something that the water department has to take a look at. This area, though, this building is fed directly off of the main in front. I don't think they have the kind of issues with water pressure and water availability that we had on the 11th Street side, with some of those ones that are kind of in the middle of the block that only had individual service lines running to their building. They have much more direct access to the main.
Okay, because I knew some of them didn't have, there wasn't enough supply for it, so.
Yeah, it comes down to, I think, where a lot of the buildings were fed from. If they were fed off of the alley or fed off of the 11th Street side, there wasn't the supply or the pressure that they needed. That's why we ran that, or the water department actually ran that small main up 11th Street past the front of Memorial Hall to provide a place for those buildings to tap onto. But the ones that front the 7th Avenue side can get to the existing mains.
Would this be the first building that's going to be sprinklered in that cluster
Memorial
of buildings?
Hall is.
Right, correct. But on this cluster of buildings, though, this would be the first.
It would be
Okay.
the first.
Any other questions?
Lon, what are you looking at for a TIF for this?
On this one, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $38,000.
And then this time period?
We'll evaluate that now that we've got all the information on the investments that he's going to make in the building. This is really kind of the first part of the intake process. The next thing is to run through the financial analysis. You know, having looked at them preliminarily, it certainly looks like it qualifies and it fits. Then we'll figure out what the duration and amount of TIF would be required in order to service that.
Yeah, again, it's important to note that if any assistance would be going to improvements to the real estate, to the building, and not the business itself. And regardless of what business is in there, those improvements improve the building and the safety of the building that stays there for a long time. So,
If I may add
Yes,
something,
ma'am.
it actually adds to the safety of the entire block.
Right.
sure.
And one of the things
So-
that was pointed out to me, I think, within my first 7 minutes of being here by the former fire chief was we needed to figure out a way to start getting sprinklers into the uptown. And when we started looking at ways to redo the TIF policy and figuring out is there a way that the city can do this, the stick approach doesn't really work, drives businesses away. Now, if you look at this one and with what Dr. Shaw has proposed, within the first 6 months of adopting this policy, we'll probably have our first 2 buildings fronting on 7th Avenue sprinklered. You know, it's a community safety investment. That's the interest in the city in providing funds to do this, is the safety, that increased level of safety that it provides for the public. And to the mayor's point, if Mr. Arnold runs a bar in there for 8 years and then decides that he's tired of running a bar and switches it over to some other use, the building is already sprinklered. It's already set up to be able to do that, which just really clears a lot of paths for building code and fire code for different types of occupancy to be in there.
And it serves the community's interest in the long-term preservation of this area.
At least popcorn?
Presently, there's no plan to do that, because that's another health violation usually waiting to happen, those popcorn machines.
You might be able to find some in there still, Councilman.
Come on in and I'll get you a bag of popcorn. How's that? Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank
You
you.
can buy prepackaged popcorn
Welcome to
from
town.
I'm sure the Marion Popcorn Company will sell you prepackaged
Yeah, there you
popcorn.
go. Good idea. Anything else? Am I good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 3, this was something that I had briefed the council about the different types of election systems that are available regarding wards in Iowa, seeking some direction from the council on where you want to head with this. Obviously, the request has been sitting out there for a while, but the council has not provided any clear direction to the staff on how we want to do this. Certainly, there has been interest indicated in doing a petition drive if it's not something that the city council wants to move forward with on your own. There's a couple of things that I did want to point out, though, as part of your consideration that I don't know that I necessarily covered with the last time. When you go through the process of amending the charter, the state code is pretty specific about the form of the question that you have to put on the ballot. Same thing that we ran into with people wanting to do an up or down vote on whether or not you should expand the library. You can't legally do that and put it on a regular election ballot because the state code is very specific about what you can put on there. If the council chooses to proceed and says, you know what, we would like to just go ahead and put the question in front of the voters, you make the determination on the phrasing of the language. With a petition, the language of the petition comes in to you, then it has to be reviewed to make sure it's consistent with the state code to see that it's eligible to be placed on the ballot. If it is, then you put forward the language that was put forth on the petition. So the advantage would be you've got some input into how the question is phrased to make sure that it's not misleading or doesn't lead people to a predetermined outcome. So just looking for some direction from the council. I know that several of you have already weighed in that you think that the current system that we have does not need to be altered. Just wanting to see if there was a consensus or clear direction from the council one way or the other.
I guess in light of that fact, I would say, I don't want to see us do it, but I don't want the way the ballot language reads to skew it one way or the other if we don't have any input on it. So in light of that, I would say we should have control of it.
In fairness, it's very difficult with the way that the question has to be phrased to necessarily steer it one way or the other. But
Yeah. Yes, in light of that, I would say we ought to take control of it.
Well, I disagree with you. I think it should, yeah, fancy that. I think it should really be up to the people, up to the voters, how their representatives are chosen.
Well, I think it's not the voters, but it's the people that are pushing this. It's maybe 5 people.
Well, the thing is, there's one person for each ward. Now,
Talking the language is.
We're not talking about the merits of the issue here. He's talking about whether or not we should put it on the ballot.
well, I think it should be. I think that's the fair
I'm
thing.
saying, yes, we should put it on the ballot,
Okay,
but
well,
the
I'm
council
missing.
should be the one that puts it on the ballot, not the
Okay,
voter. Sorry. I didn't
okay,
think you,
misunderstood.
yes.
Thank
See,
you.
we did agree.
Oh, no. Take it all back.
Thoughts on that?
People decided the way it is. They want to change it, let them decide they want to change it. I mean, I know that there's meetings going on according to the internet of a group getting together trying to do a petition, so I'd rather we do it than them, personally.
2 meetings.
Well, if there's going to be a petition, I think we better step in and, be able to have input on that. But I would like us to maybe it be on the agenda about voting for what we're going to do, so they know where we stand.
I'm still in favor of having a committee or commission appointed to look at the charter and take input and make recommendations. But I will go with whatever the council feels.
I guess if the city does it, will we have enough time to get it into the election cycle this year?
I believe as long as it would be into the county auditor by the end of August, it would be available to be put on the November ballot. I'll confer with Don in between now and Thursday, but I'm assuming what we would need would be a resolution directing the city attorney to direct draft ballot language to be presented to the city council for approval.
So if we do that commission, that's going to be.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Let's just.
How you ask the question. Well, it's how you ask the question, as Lon says. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
the question would be asked in a way that it's clear to everyone. I assume that what it is they're voting on. But my point is again, I think it's something that needs to be studied, that needs to be looked at, and
I agree as well too. I just don't think sometimes when we have dispute or questions about something that we're talking about the charter. It's like the Constitution. Nick's brought that up several times. I will stand by that as well too. If it was 30,000 people coming before it, that's one thing. But when we have a group with a debate on a particular topic, we will always be questioning it is what it is and why we have what we have.
But we can't really stop this. They're going to have a petition out there.
I understand.
So
I understand.
I suggest that maybe a council person work with the staff to get this, or
Could we vote, or could we pass something along that would basically say, should it be voted on? I mean, could we ask our citizens in November if they have an interest in changing the charter and electing by ward? That way we're not changing anything. We're just testing what Joe is saying. Are we going to allow a small group of people to change? I don't know why we couldn't ask language on a ballot that said, hey, citizens, should we look at changing this?
should we appoint a charter commission to review the charter?
We'll have to do a little bit of research on that one. I know some cities have done votes on convening charter commissions, but I'm not sure. For example, like Iowa City periodically convenes a charter commission, but I think their charter may require that. I don't know when it's not a part of the charter that has to happen periodically, what the process is to do that or how that question could potentially be put on the ballot. Just remember that the state code is very specific about what can and can't be placed on the ballot. So something like that, we may not be able to do that, but we'll check.
But we're just asking our citizens if they want it on the ballot at a future date.
Right, but you're not, the state code is prescriptive, meaning the only questions that can be put on the ballot are those that are allowed in the state code. It's one of the few exceptions to home rule where you can't just put anything you want to on the ballot in front of the voters. So you can't use the ballot, for example, as a way to gauge public opinion on different things for non-binding advisory positions or anything like that. When we've looked at these issues in the past, not only does the state code say that you can't do it, the county auditor's office has told us that they won't do it, even in the interest of doing if we wanted to do a special election, like when we were talking about the library, to put a question out in front of the voters on up or down, should we expand the library or not, the Lynn County Auditor's Office has told us they wouldn't even do that because it wouldn't fit the state election code. That's an interesting question, not something that we had thought about, so we'll just have to do a little research on it, unless Don's boned up on it already.
Okay.
Either way it goes, if it's an election, whether it's public pushed or council, does Marion still have to pay for that, the special election, or to add it to the ballot, I should?
Not to add it to the ballot. Since the ballot's already being prepared, they've got the ability to add any questions to it that you're allowed to put on. The election's already being held. We'll have our share of expenses for anything that would be a city issue related to the election, but those types of things happen anyway.
So it wouldn't be an additional expense for the city.
It shouldn't be because it's not considered a special election.
Okay.
Okay. All right, the next one, this is something that we haven't really discussed with the City Council at all. I know a couple of you were on the Lynn County Commission that was reviewing whether or not the Lynn County should adopt an ordinance establishing a local minimum wage. Just looking for some input on this from the council. The Board of Supervisors is seeking input from people on whether or not they should move forward with the board's recommendation. Essentially, what the committee recommended was an ordinance that would raise the local minimum wage to $8.25 with the potential for it to be further increased in the future. I know the group heard some presentations from different sources about the potential impacts that could have. On the city standpoint, the positions that we have that would most likely be affected by an increased minimum wage pretty much reside in the Parks Department. That would be some of our coaches, potentially some of our lifeguards, things like that. A lot of our temporary summer positions are where we would really see that. Most of our other ones, like our kind of full-time seasonal positions, are already well past that. Our summer help and one of the ones that are working in what we call semi-professional positions like in engineering are already past that, but there is a financial impact to us. When they start getting into saying that it's got to be at 10/10 or something like that, then you start to see some more significant impacts. The way I look at it, there's kind of a cascade impact, because if our starting wage for a first-year lifeguard right now is $7.50 and you raise it to $8.25, well, then your second-year lifeguards need to be above that, and your third-year lifeguards need to be further above that. So there's kind of a roll-up effect that you have by making a change to just the minimum. So it's bigger than just changing that minimum wage. When I had initially looked at it, when they first started talking about doing it at $15 an hour, $15 an hour would have had about a $240,000 a year impact to the city of Marion. So it was very, very significant. With what they're talking about here, obviously it's going to be quite a bit less than that. I haven't done any specific calculations to see yet what the number would be. Just wanted to get some feedback from the city council and see if you wanted to go on position and have an official position as speaking as the city of Marion on this issue that we could provide to Lynn County.
What power do they have over private business?
It's like anything else. If Lynn County adopts an ordinance, it has the effect of a law. Now, if you look at the example of Johnson County, some communities have elected to opt out of that because the county can't adopt an ordinance that we can't opt out of because we have jurisdiction in the city limits. But in the case where a city chooses not to act, then the county ordinance applies.
Yeah, technically, we wouldn't be opting out of their ordinance. We would have to pass an inconsistent ordinance. We'd have to pass our own ordinance that says something different.
Well, I said last time, because I believe it's state and federal's job on the minimum wage and not by county. You're going to have a terrible mess statewide if every county has its own minimum wage. I think we should stand alone on that. And personally, and I don't think I would rebel owning a business, and I did not have anybody making minimum wage, but we do have some businesses that do in our community, and it's a minimum job, a lot of them, So it comes to this vote at this end of the table, I would be voting to not go along with the county and exempt Marion.
I guess I agree with the 825, but what I didn't agree with on the county was the next jump being like a couple of years away. I think the next jump should be, well, like 750 has been that for 10 years almost. And I think making it jump to $10 an hour in 2 or 3 years would be devastating for the businesses. But like I stopped, we drink coffee at Burger King, and I just happened to ask the ladies behind the counter, I said, what do you make starting? And they make $8.25 an hour, and the supervisor makes 10. So their starting salary at Marion Burger King is $8.25.
Well, the thing that bothers me is that basically a lot of these jobs, like the fast food and things, are considered entrance into the workforce type thing, and it's kids that are the ones that it's kind of geared towards. If the people who have to do a second and third type job, right? I feel sorry for them, but speaking as one who made 30 cents an hour being a car hop when they started out, $7.25 boggles my mind.
I know some people have indicated to me some concerns with kind of the process for how this came together, that the initial process was expected to take quite a bit longer. I think, some of the other communities in Johnson County and other places that have contemplated this really are, in my mind, kind of trying to force the state legislature into having to take up the issue by creating a hodgepodge, by doing exactly what you're talking about, Paul, to force the issue at the state level so that they have to take some action on it one way or another. I get concerned about, whether or not that should be the role of the city of Marion to do things like that, to try to do something that might be perceived as a negative just to prompt some other legislative body to act in a manner that you want. I know the mayor had iterated that he kind of felt like that the process got circumvented a bit by that just being thrown out there and then making a recommendation well ahead of the planned timeline for that the issue didn't really get a whole lot of study. I'll admit that I kind of felt the same way because I wasn't expecting anything to come back from that group until September or October. So when all of a sudden it hits and there's a firm proposal for $8.25, it just made me wonder whether it had gotten all of the study that it really needed before the group came to a recommendation. I understand why they did and why the individual members voted the way that they did based on the information they'd been provided to that date.
I guess that's kind of my feeling is that so far all we've heard is what people think. People say, well, I think it's going to do this, and I think it's going to hurt these people, and I think it's good, it's going to hurt these businesses, and it's going to. But who are we? We're not economists. I want to know from people who can actually tell me in Linn County how is it going to impact Linn County wages? Who is it going to impact? How is it going to impact the businesses? How is it going to impact the wage earners? So that we can actually make an informed decision. But, all I hear is personal opinion, with all due respect to everybody, giving those opinions. They're just personal opinion.
No, there
So
was
that's kind of my feeling. We had one presentation from the Johnson County person who did a study on the 1010.
One thing, too, I want to point out is we all have valid concerns on this. We do have a lot of people that are at those minimum wages. They're qualifying for some of these local, county, and state aid. When they do have a rate increase or a wage increase, how does it also impact that? So now we all of a sudden have somebody that fell within the parameters of receiving WIC, food stamps, government aid, and they validly so needed that, but now could the wage increase push them out of that category? Which just like Nick was saying, so it's difficult for us. How do we sit here and say what's right, what's wrong, when we need to look at it and say, how does it impact the businesses, the city governments, everything that makes the economy go around? But then also, too, what's the recourse on the backside of the windfall on the backside of that? So the people do receive those benefits. Now, all of a sudden, will we raise the caps on those? Will they fall out of it? Will they not get the aid that they had been getting
those are
before?
At the state level.
That's correct. And so I totally agree with that. And I am so torn on this issue. there's emotions wrapped up into this. There's economics wrapped up into this. There's personal family members that are wrapped up into this. There's people in our community. It just goes on and on and on. And it's a terrible burden that we all must bear at this point to understand how it works, how it impacts everybody. I know that's not answering your question, Lon, but
No, that's okay.
I just want everybody to understand the gravity that this thing carries with it, because it is a huge one.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that if the council doesn't have a consensus on it, I didn't really know if there were, if the clear consensus of the council was a strong feeling one way or the other. If you'd like, we could see if we can round up some people that have studied this issue to come in and make more formal presentations to the council, maybe from the advocate side and from the impacted business side, so that you could have some of the information that you're looking for. I don't think this is something that's time sensitive, where Lynn County is going to act on it on August 15th if we don't provide some feedback to them. But because it wasn't anything that we had ever discussed as a group, I didn't really know where you were sitting on it. And I've been getting questions from county supervisors, where does Marion stand on this issue? And I didn't have any way to tell them.
Do you know, are they headed towards approving the 825? Is that what they're thinking, or is it going to do something different? Or
I think they're taking public input on it. They want to hear from constituents and from the communities about where they're heading with it.
Well, since so many of these things are run by what the state gives them, like the breakfast and the lunch for the school kids and stuff, it should be the state that decides what the amount
The burden
is.
it will impact. We're just sitting here talking about our utilities, right?
Yeah.
That chart that's sitting there showing what levels of poverty are, 100%, 133, 150, all of those are attributed to that. Mm-hmm. So there's, going back to Newton's theory, right? For every reaction, there's a reaction. And this would be a huge one. This would be a huge one. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just simply saying we also have to understand what the windfall is on the backside of this as to, and at those levels, because they control those. So of these assistant programs that we have out there, if we move in one direction on one, the state has to be prepared to move on another if they need to move in harmony.
I agree.
And I'm sorry, it's not an answer you're looking for, but
no,
you're right. You do need. We as a city need to know where we stand on it, and I think we need more input, more education.
We'll see if we can track down some folks that would be willing to come in and do some presentations on it. I know that obviously there have been some presentations on it down in Johnson County that at least Joe and Kim have heard from before. We'll see, who we can find that can maybe present the other side of the argument, so that you can hear from kind of both positions on it before you would come to making a conclusion.
I think Supervisor Rogers was the one heading the meeting, so,
Speakers, there were a lot of good ones. I have a list of people.
Yeah, but he was the chairman of that committee.
Okay, but now if we're going to be sitting through these things, are we going to get a raise because
You can vote on that slug.
Oh, okay.
So the last one that we have under administration is a change order regarding the facade revitalization program. We are slightly expanding the scope of 4 of the participating properties. I just wanted to note that $62,000 figure, the city will ultimately only be responsible for 15% of that. So just over $10,000 will be the city's responsibility. The rest will come from property owners and the CDBG program. There is ample capacity in existing budget from the city's portion.
Now, was this initially bid on?
Yes.
A bid was received for this?
Yes, our contractor is Renaissance Restoration.
And now they're going to have a change order, and it's going to be a higher rate.
Yeah, so as they got into doing the improvements to the facades,
Well, a
additional...
long time ago, I said, if you're going to bid, then stay within your bid. And, because, yes, you can bid low and make sure you get the bid, and then put in for a change order afterwards, which extends how much you're paying, and that's not right.
They are within their bid. These are additional items that the property owners are requesting as part of the facade improvement program. So they are within their bid for those things that were included in the bid documents.
And they have voted yes, that they want those things.
Yes, so attached to the memo for this item, I've included all the acknowledgement forms from each property owner.
Okay, I saw those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Satisfy the question I've been asked, would you make sure they post the building permits in the windows of these buildings?
Yeah, so the contractor should be responsible for that. I can check with them to verify that that's been done.
Amanda, I was wondering how far along we are with the facade program.
Very far along. We'll actually have an update on Thursday, which will be a status of funded activities report, and I can provide you additional information at that time.
Other questions?
The only other thing that we have then is we have scheduled a closed session for this afternoon. It's item I before adjournment.
I think, Chief, were you going to give us an update, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll give you an update first. I tried really hard today to get an updated report from the Department of Agriculture and did not receive one. So the quantitative results of the components of what was dropped into Marion still have not been completed. I tried to contact the investigators that have been in town the last few days. I could not reach them, and so I have no update as of today. All of the public media releases that I sent to you, that's the latest that I have. I update those daily, so that's where those are. So rather than go through the whole thing again, I'm just going to ask if you all have any questions. In talking with the mayor, he made a good point to me that on these kind of situations, we might need to gather a committee and discuss what we're going to do at the time that it happens. So I failed to call the mayor by phone the night that it happened. It was the middle of the night. There were people out of town, Lon and our communications person. So in the past, what we've done when we've had similar situations, the fire chief just kind of took over and did it. So that's kind of how we handled it. Unfortunately, with this situation, we have no one on our department that is a hazmat expert. We do not have a hazardous material team on our fire department. We rely on the Lynn County hazardous materials team and the Cedar Rapids hazardous materials team. So we call them in when we have a substance of unknown components to find out what the danger is. And unfortunately, the first reading that they got, they stated it was a herbicide. The second test that the Department of Agriculture did noted that it was a fungicide. There's a big difference. We should be very thankful it wasn't an herbicide. The fungicide is less impactive. So that's where we're at right now. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I do want to reiterate. A few months ago, I came to the council and asked for permission to begin to form a committee to build a new emergency plan for our city, and this is the very instance of which we needed one, and there wasn't one. So it's very important that I go ahead with that establishment of the committee. I just haven't had time lately, but actually I was waiting for winter because a lot of the engineers and everyone that would need to be a part of that committee, they're so busy this time of year. So we were going to form the committee this winter, but we had an incident, and this is where an emergency plan would have been very beneficial.
I think we would all be supportive of that effort. And I do want to commend you and thank you for all the time that you spent over the past week. I know you did a lot. We were on the phone a lot. You were on top of it and trying to figure out what was going on and keep everyone informed, all the press releases. And so thank you for your diligence.
Thank you.
No, Deb, how much did it cost to hire that crop duster?
I have no idea.
Well, no, I'm just saying, you know, what better way to get your plan into effect than,
Oh,
but
goodness.
you
No,
would
no,
never,
no,
you would
I didn't
never
do
do
Let's
that.
not even make those kinds of.
Have I seen a tree on 35th or 31st, a maple tree with half of it dying? I saw that yesterday, I think. And
No, now, if it would have been an herbicide, we would have had all of our plants
And,
probably
and I
die.
haven't, I've driven around and I went by the pool today and I didn't see any plants that,
We are very lucky it was a fungicide. If
Yeah.
it would have been an herbicide at that
other,
amount,
they're
we would have
spraying,
had
yeah,
dead plants all over the
they're spraying
neighborhood.
the soybeans for sudden death, I think is what they call it. And that would be a fungicide.
Mhm. But it's still under investigation,
It-
and I still do not have the chemical report.
And
One of
it is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Agriculture.
That is
They're the
correct.
ones who are investigating. They're the ones who.
Yes,
are
I'm just
in
sort of
charge of
the
it.
public information officer for the city.
And one
But
of the
they are
things
in
to-
charge.
One of the things to remember is that sometimes some of those TV shows that can solve everything in an hour and have access to all the pretty lab equipment create unrealistic expectations. You know, we don't have a crime lab. We don't have the ability to do that kind of stuff in-house. It gets sent down to the UI hygienic labs, and it's whenever they can get back to us with the information. So sometimes, you know, people want to know stuff that we just unfortunately don't know, and we have to wait to hear back from the experts on what it is. So sometimes when you get contacted at the city council level, it's about helping to kind of manage public expectations about what actually can be achieved too versus what they've seen in other mediums.
Actually, thank you for bringing that up, Lon. Captain Slagle will verify this also. TV has been a really big problem for public safety. Because of the TV shows and everything, it's very unrealistic. And unfortunately, it gives the public an expectation that none of us can meet. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up something for scheduling. I think by the next Tuesday meeting, we'll be ready to do Lon's review. And so, Beth, if you would schedule after the meeting for the next Tuesday. So,
Coming to
no, this is the next regular work session.
next work session.
Yes.
The next
okay.
regular work session. Okay. Want to make a motion?
Yeah. Do we need to go into official mode to do the?
Yeah, we'll need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Yeah, but do you need to gavel into an official meeting to do this? Okay. Your Honor, I make a motion to adjourn to a closed session regarding potential litigation as permitted under Section 21.5, 1C of the Code of Iowa, and then for Don.
Before you vote, let me give you my opinion. I reviewed the subject matter, and it's appropriate under state law.
Okay.
The practice of law is nothing like it is on TV either.
Do we need a roll call?
Azor. Ms. Etzel. Mr.
Yes.
Spinks.
Yes.
Mayor Avalosely.
Yes.
Mr. Sternad.
We're not finished here.
Mr. Sternad.
We need a roll
Mr. Sternad.
We're taking a roll call.
No.
Yes.
Yes, to adjourn.
Mr. Draper.
Oh, why not? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.